Today's video is sponsored by Saley. Orville, this is for you. Yeehaw! Hey y'all, it's me, Busville Peck, and welcome back to Hot or Hot. And today, we'll be reviewing episode 8 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 10, the Tournament of All-Stars! Our 6 queens from the purple bracket split themselves into groups and were challenged to write and record lyrics for country hits to be performed in the new Drag Race Festival, Stagecooch. And the runway category was Night of 1,000 Mileys. And let's just say we're reaching a point in All-Stars 10 where things are getting a little stale, where we even have queens in the franchise like Candy Muse tweeting things out like, "Girl, I'm not finishing bracket 3, call me back when the merge happens." Same. Let's be clear, I think the real reason things are getting a little uninteresting in this bracket in particular is because of the way things are feeling so rigged, and not because there's a lack of talent from the actual queens. There's a lot of favoritism and a lot of rigmaroles happening in this bracket, and we'll be breaking all that down after we go queen by queen to cover the challenge and runways for this episode. But first, we've got some tea and drama to cover involving one of the most controversial queens of the franchise, Gia Gunn, who just this past week has been exposed through some rather interesting behavior, we'll say, by New York City's nightlife influencer and it girl Lennox. So this all started when Lennox posted a video to her Instagram profile talking about an interaction she had with a certain drag race queen who she at first kept nameless, referring to her as Tracy. And where in that video, Lennox details an interaction where she says this queen, Tracy, came to a Paul's Dolls party in LA, where Gia then asked Lennox for a photo of just the dolls. But to Gia's apparent dismay, a cisgender gay man snuck his way into the photo, which sent Gia into a tailspin because Lennox spent a second defending his presence in the photo and said, "Hey, let's take another one." This apparently didn't sit right with Gia, who then called the person there who snuck into the photo the F-slur, which then, as Lennox recounts, leads to Tracy storming out of the party and texting all of the dolls about how she thinks the Paul's Dolls party is transphobic and not actually supportive of the trans community.
Tracy said, "Lennox, you're not even gonna defend me. You're gonna take this little gay boy's side. I'm leaving this transphobic party, and I'm letting everyone know that Paul's Dolls is not for the girls."
And again, while Lennox didn't directly name Gia in this video and instead referred to her as Tracy, the truth did later come out when Lennox posted a text message thread she had with Gia, allegedly, to her story, where we there can see an interaction that she had with a contact in her phone named Gia, where she is saying, "F that party, can't even get one picture with just the dolls. There's nothing community-based about those events." And where Lennox says, "LMFAO, Gia, someone jumped in a photo, and then I said, let's take a doll-only pic, and then you stormed out. This has nothing to do with my party or those events." And then where Gia says, "Yes, because I shouldn't have to be talked to by someone who's promoting or supporting these events, and you didn't have my back. Thirsty F words wanting photos." Where then Gia apparently went on to say, sometime after Lennox posted the video calling out Tracy, "You can try and read me on the internet and inflate the story for clout all you want, but you are still a F word in a wig. There's nothing trans about your parties. Stop trying to bank off an identity that some of us actually invest in and take very seriously. Your parties are for cross-dressers and F words in wigs like you. On top of pretending to create a safe space for trans people, you ask famous trans women with tons of followers to show up and host for free. You tell me who is benefiting from Paul's Dolls, because I'll tell you one thing, it certainly isn't the trans community," where Lennox has in that post also tagged Gia Gunn. And look, these are some pretty crazy messages here, but I do think one thing is clear, and that's Gia is apparently dealing with some internalized homophobia and transphobia with the way she is here addressing the people who were at the party sneaking into the photo, and also Lennox herself. And I think no matter how you read these messages, it's pretty clear Gia was just kind of being nasty for no reason at all. But I will also say that this is only one person's side of the story at this time, and Gia hasn't publicly spoken about this event or given us maybe more insight into why she was feeling the way she felt. That said, I obviously don't support the hate speech being used in her messages to Lennox, because those are just nasty. But all I can really say, as someone who's covered Drag Race drama for several years now, is that none of this behavior from Gia Gunn surprises me. She's someone who is constantly finding herself embroiled in the center of some controversial statement or opinion, and rarely, if ever, does she back down from the things that she said. And in fact, with the amount of controversy that Gia has found herself in over the years, I would say she probably stirs most of this up on purpose just to get her own attention and clout whenever she feels like some bills are due. And some of the past drama, like the no glamour at DragCon comments and such, can be read as funny, but these are obviously not okay. But that's the LGBT. But this just in. It's Hot Girls summer! Which means it's time to lock in and get your international data plan ready for your summer travel. With the help of the new hot eSIM service app, Saley, now offering affordable international data plans in over 180 countries. And here's the gag. Saley actually has better prices than my phone carrier. For example, when I went to Mexico, my carrier charged me $35 for a 5GB data plan that only lasted 10 days. But Saley has data plans for Mexico starting at a fraction of that cost and lasting a lot longer. Plus, Saley's a prepaid service, so you'll never run into unexpected overage or roaming fees. But if you find yourself needing any more data while you're posting your thirst traps abroad, just top up in the app at any time. To get started, use my link below or scan the QR code on screen to download the Saley app to your mobile device. Then select your destination, choose your plan, and enter code BussyQueen for my exclusive 15% discount. Then your plan will activate when you arrive at your destination, meaning you don't have to waste any time trying to buy a SIM card at the airport, and you don't have to worry about connecting to shady public Wi-Fis in foreign countries. Download Saley right now using my link or by scanning the QR code on screen, and make sure to enter code BussyQueen for 15% off your plan. Thanks Saley for sponsoring today's video. And before we get into the episode, we do have one really fun and exciting and uplifting announcement, and that is Lexi Love has announced her engagement to her partner on her Instagram. And so to Lexi and her partner, I say congratulations, and everybody say love. And now on to this week's episode. Yeehaw! So as a quick refresher, we're starting off episode 8 with Ginger and Daya having won 3 and 2 points respectively in last week's challenge, and our 4 bottom queens needing to dole out their MVQ points. And unfortunately, this MVQ ceremony turns out to be really boring, and I think that is mostly because we have a set of very congenial queens in this bracket, but also because we as viewers are now watching a group of queens figure out how to award these points and what is fair for the 3rd time. We're hearing the same conversations that we've heard in the 2nd, 5th, and now 8th episodes about what's fair, what's not fair, and who maybe is or is not going to do alliances, etc., etc. But as I kind of hinted at, I don't think that we really have any stars in this group, and everyone here is just kind of like happy to be on All Stars and show off their drag and develop a community. And so we get a very RuPaul's Best Friends race exchanging of MVQ points where we see Cynthia and Alyssa swap theirs because they were on the same team last week, and Denali and Acid swap theirs because they were on the same team last week. Which means going into this challenge, our scoreboard is basically unaffected from where it started. And now, in the order they sang their verses at Stagecooch, first up we've got Cynthia Lee Fontaine, who was a part of the Mudflaps group singing Yokar. And Cuckoo opens up her group's revenge-themed anthem, sounding surprisingly strong on this track. She had a real grit and power to her voice that kind of surprised me, I guess mostly because I just had never really heard her sing in this way before. But she also had a really nice rhyme and flow to what she was singing, like, riding my cuckoo but you're looking at her, I guess you're not the man I thought you were. Thought you get the rose but now you get the thorn, baby I'm the one to grab the bull by the horn. Plus Cynthia looked good, emoted well, nailed the choreo, and generally had absolutely nothing wrong with her performance, and I think she was kind of overlooked by the judges this week. But as we are kind of, I think, now figuring out, this just simply is not a bracket intended to progress her into the semifinals. It is what it is, but yes, this performance was absolutely hot. And over on the runway, we see Cynthia recreating Miley's 2015 VMAs look, and I really love the explanation that Cynthia gave as to why she chose this look. It being a look that Miley showcased on stage alongside so many of the Drag Race franchise queens, and it also being a look, I think, that was symbolic of showing off Miley's both love for drag as an art form and also the Drag Race queens from the franchise. The original look truly is great, but Cynthia's, I think, lacks a little bit in execution. The cape was done well though, and I love the wig, love the mug, but what was kind of missing for me was the balance of the proportions used in the elements on the torso part of the garment. I think the size of the eyeballs on the chest, and then the placement and size of the panty line were just kind of off to me, giving it a generally ill-fitting look. But the symbolism, color palette, and whimsy of the overall effect of what she was doing was strong, so I think I'm gonna leave this look with a warming up. And next up, it's our resident eye booger picker, Daya Betty, who, yes, picked out an eye booger that was like probably the biggest one I've ever seen in my entire life from Alyssa Hunter's eye in Untucked, which was the most exciting thing that happened in Untucked. Daya Betty, you little freak. No, actually I was really scared watching that because I was getting flashbacks to when she ate the dragonfly in her original season, and I was like really scared that she was gonna be eating that eye booger. Thankfully, she didn't. But anyways, in the challenge, Daya definitely brings her signature punky personality into this country verse with lyrics like, always know what I want, so you call me a bitch. And my favorite couplet of her verse, so pedal to the metal, baby, hold on tight. Just beware of this dog, cause Betty does bite. Which lyrically was just so fun. The one place I think Daya maybe struggled a little bit was sounding country enough for the track. Like it maybe could have been a tad more honky-tonky or belty in some parts of her lyrics, but I enjoyed what she was doing, and as usual, she's got a great attitude on stage. She's an amazing performer, and as the judges highlight this episode, I think Daya really has come into her own, and that is very clear here on All Stars 10, and this performance was hot. And over on the runway, Daya has chosen to recreate a look that Miley wore at the 2013 Met Gala, which is a really early era Miley look that I don't remember ever seeing, but I absolutely love the gown Miley's wearing. She looks phenomenal in this. And I totally understand why Daya Betty, our punky alternative queen, chose this look to recreate. However, I do think the execution here was just kind of lacking, and the final effect of what she created wasn't quite as striking as the original that Miley wore. To me, the original garment is so beautiful because it falls against the natural curves of Miley's body. And like, yes, she had the right banging body to show off in that dress. But the issue I have with the dress on Daya is that instead of showing off Daya's actual body, it's tight in a way that's showing off all of the drag undergarment pieces, like the corsetry, where you can even see some of the boning, the bra pieces, and then even these like harder structural elements that she's added to the gown, like the shoulder pads. And of course, I'm not mad that Daya has like corseted and given herself this gorgeous hourglass figure, but I do just think it is a little illusion shattering to see all of those pieces underneath the gown when the focus should be on the garment and not what's underneath. I would give this look like maybe also just a warming up. It just wasn't as good as it could have been. And next up, the woman of the hour, the apparent reason for the season, Ginger Minj, who, let's firstly acknowledge and call out, is absolutely perfect for a challenge like this. She is a Southern queen. She's got a country album, and I think it probably would have been harder for her to do bad in this challenge than good. And what I liked about what she brought to her verse was the layer of comedy in her lyrics, like, my tea is iced, but my temper's hot. I put the charisma, uniqueness, talent in country. And then when she closes with, it chapped my ass when he smacked me on the fanny, then told me you were cheating, my own damn granny. And she was not only funny both in the writing delivery of her lyrics, but also just the way she carried herself on stage. Plus, she sounded great on this track with her very natural sounding country accent. She's a singer, she's a performer, and she is a Southern country queen, and all that came through so clearly in this challenge. This was hot. Over on the runway, though, I wasn't as impressed this week. She chose to recreate a 2017 VMAs look that Miley wore, which is a very Elvis-y type of outfit with a little jacket and big flare pants. And I'll say this look looks great on Miley, but something about the way it was recreated here for Ginger is just odd. The giant like metal circle grommets that are all up and down the pants and jacket of this are so distracting to me, and I don't know if it's just like their general presence or the fact that they're all one size and huge, but like it's kind of giving shower curtain, and shower curtain is not something you want to be giving on the Drag Race runway. I also just think there's something generally off about the proportion of the jacket versus the pants on her, and there's some like odd fit issues going on, but I will compliment Ginger here and say I think her hair and mug are the best of the 4 seasons that she's been on that they have ever been. But yeah, this look is a drop. Ginger Minj also had an interesting interview published this week in Entertainment Weekly that I've linked below for you to read about her autism diagnosis that she apparently got during the All Stars 10 psychiatric evaluation, where in the interview she says, to be candid, I didn't find out that I was truly autistic. Of course, I had my assumptions through my life until we did the casting process for All Stars 10 and I went in for the psychiatric evaluation. The way I communicated, the therapist said, are you autistic? Are you on the spectrum? I had my suspicions, but I said I'd never been tested. He said he'd like me to be tested, so I did. I got tested, and I am. It put my 40 years of existence in a perspective so quickly for me. And first up in our second group of queens tonight, calling themselves the Whiskey Chicks and singing Trailer Hitch, is Acid Betty, who opens up this suggestive song with lyrics like, move on over, sugar, it's my turn to drive, get on in and scooch on close, you can call me Marge, that's large Marge for you no charge. And then where she goes totally balls to the wall with the lyrics talking about getting lubed up and ready to glide and how she's your rental duty slip and slide, which were crazy lyrics to hear on the Drag Race stage because there was just absolutely no subtlety with what she's saying, which as a not very subtle person myself, I can definitely appreciate. Absent was definitely one of the funnier queens on this stage tonight concerning her verse, but I don't think she sounded as comfortable on the track, and something about the way she sang things was kind of missing a little bit of that honky-tonky country wang tang sound. Plus, as Michelle does call out, she was wearing a really questionable wig, which deserves a rot all on its own, but I enjoyed the performance aspect of what she was doing, so I'm gonna leave her with a safe hot. And over the runway, she's creating a 2015 VMAs look from Miley, which is another Miley look that I don't think I was ever really aware of, and probably isn't one that I would have chosen to recreate because I don't necessarily love the original, but I actually did really like the direction Acid took this look because she kind of made it better. Evolving that tiny little chandelier skirt Miley had onto a a full-length moment was really a smart move on Acid's part. Plus, I love the way she incorporated those like silver straps on her arms, and I absolutely love the way she accessorized this look with that matching chandelier headdress and the big purple mohawk she's got on, completing this look and making it feel so Acid, yet yes, reminiscent of the original Miley look. What I really had a problem with here though was the way the nude illusion and the rhinestones are attempting to create a breast illusion, and this could be something that looks better in person and the stage lights were really just messing with it, but it just kind of looked like she had giant like wounds on her chest rather than contour, and it just wasn't pretty or elegant in the way that the rest of the look actually was. And so I did knock off a few points because of how unsightly the chest area was. I am still gonna give this look a hot. I'm also really enjoying Acid on my screen. I've gotta say, she was the only queen this episode to bring any sort of notable drama, where in the workroom as they're getting ready to hit the main stage, she finally starts cooking up a scheme to get some more points to the queens who are not dominating already. And where we can see her scheming with Alyssa and Denali to agree not to give any more MVQ points to the likes of Daya and Ginger. And she stood totally firm in what she was saying because Daya actually asked her what was going on the other side of the room because like she could obviously hear everything that was going on. And Acid just kind of looks at her and is like, you're not getting any more points. It's decided, it's done, and I speak for the whole group. Bye. And so I'm praying that this turns into something interesting in the next MVQ ceremony. But with the way this episode turned out, pushing Ginger so far ahead of the pack, I don't think that it is actually going to affect the outcome of anything at all. I also want to quickly remind you, you can watch episodes of Drag Race right along with me in my reaction videos that I post exclusively to my Patreon at patreon.com/BussyQueen. Click my link below to join my Patreon for free and get exclusive benefits at upgraded tiers. See you there. Next up, it's the alleged trade of the season, Alyssa Hunter, who in the challenge opens up her verse doing some sing talking in a really strange Muppety voice that even though she like turned down the Muppetness quality in the rehearsals, still came off Muppety. She said, "Hello bitches, howdy you all. Pew pew. This Puerto Rican can hustle, right? Yeehaw." Sorry, these are really just like funny to read without like a melody backing. Cowboy sugar daddies, I don't care. The only thing I want is cock. Tails. I'm Latina and spicy, hablo español, so papi take your pants off and give you mucho more. And let me firstly say, I think Alyssa had a really great attitude and energy in her performance. Like, her heart was in the right place. And yes, these lyrics are funny and entertaining, but kind of like in the wrong way. Like, I'm enjoying them ironically. And so, like, I can't sit here and genuinely say I think they were good lyrics or that she sounded good on the track, because she didn't. There was a little too much onomatopoeia. She was struggling to find rhythm, and it was off. This performance was a Alyssa's runway, though, maybe nobody's surprise, was absolutely phenomenal. She comes out in almost perfect recreation of the Bob Mackie dress Miley wore at the 2024 Grammys. Like, seriously, the side-by-side is insane. The level of detail that she captured from the original to what she's wearing is immaculate. Plus, she's got a mic and mic stand that she's carrying down the runway, giving us, like, a full performance. And I love when a runway just turns from more than showing off a garment to an experience, and she did that. The only thing I thought was kind of questionable about what Alyssa did on the runway tonight was how she came out with that giant black cape that had a Grammy in the middle and then the words, "I just won my first Grammy" in gold lettering, which I'm only saying upset me because I don't love seeing words, much less sentences, on garments. I just find it a little kitschy, but also I find it a little annoying because to even read or understand what was on this cape, I had to pause the show and like genuinely spend a few minutes deciphering what the hell was written on this. Thankfully though, the rest of the look was so incredible that we can just pretend this cape didn't exist and celebrate the dress she served, because this was hot. And last in the trailer, Hitch group. She's icy, she's spicy, and of course, oh so pricey, it's Denali, who was, I don't have to tell y'all, absolutely phenomenal in this challenge. She killed every aspect of this, head to toe, house down, boots up, yes God, oh period. But she's saying, let's have a duel. See who shoots first. Do-si-do together till my dog is hurt. And where she's got really great puns layered into her lyrics and flow, like, just look at my competition. Baby boy, I got a leg up. 365, take some cherry pie. And where she ends singing, got a saddle and a paddle, tell your buddies not to tattle. Bag the baddest baddie in town, but can't tie a hoe down. And I really loved her verse because these are lyrics you can read back different times and get different meanings or understandings of what she was saying. But I also just loved how she sounded. She just had a great rhythm and cadence comes to what she was singing. And she also, I think, considering that she's not a Southern queen per se, did a really great job sounding country on the track. Denali was smooth, controlled, funny, and a little subversive in her verse, and I really enjoyed what she did. This was totally hot. And Denali's runway was also stellar tonight. She chose to recreate the infamous teddy bear chicken cutlet look that Miley wore on the 2013 VMAs. And if y'all were around at this time consuming pop culture, you'll know that this look was controversial because of the way that it got memed. At the time, Miley was in her bangers era and was really leaning into her hip-hop fantasy and was twerking on stage in this costume that apparently was, you know, way too tight on her backside and separated her cheeks in a really unfortunate way for her that when compared to a raw chicken, well, you can see she just kind of was giving raw chicken. Anyways, raw chicken backside aside, I thought this was such a great look for someone like Denali to recreate because it has so much whimsy. It's kind of quirky and weird in the best way possible, like she is. Plus, at the end of the runway, when she took off the barefaced bodysuit and showed off the illusion latex costume, she also had Miley's infamous foam finger. Like, Denali really killed both the presentation, performance, and aesthetic aspects of this look, and it was great. This was totally hot. Which brings us to our placements, where the judges decide to put Denali and Ginger Minj in the top this week. I'll say this top two is not a top two that I disagree with, but I do feel like it was a big missed opportunity on the show's part here to celebrate another queen's drag, because we've got somebody like Cynthia Lee Fontaine sitting right there who had a great verse, an amazing performance, and sounded great on the track, but who was really totally overlooked by the judges, and instead favored for somebody who is there for her fourth time around and was kind of doing a challenge that, yeah, was like tailor-made for her. And I want to clarify, like, it is not Ginger's fault that she slayed a challenge that very obviously was made for her, and I'm not discounting that she did good. I'm just saying that we as viewers of the show at this point in the Drag Race lifespan have a little bit of fatigue when it comes to the very obvious heavy-handedness that the producers are putting into this season. And it's also just kind of annoying to see Ginger here in the top two again, because last week she was also in the top two when pretty much all of the viewers and fans kind of decided that the top two should have been Acid and Denali. Anyways, Ginger and Denali end up lip syncing to See You Again by Miley Cyrus, and this lip sync was kind of a doozy. On one hand, we've got Denali, who's ready to show off every trick, split, jump, and twist that she has in her arsenal at every beat of the song, which like is entertaining to a point, but also begins to feel a little repetitive and too much for the content of the track that they're lip syncing to. But then on the other hand, we've got Ginger, who decides to treat this song effectively like a park and bark and does a good job in the emotiveness in her face in the lip sync, sure, but kind of just gave a nothing lip sync otherwise. And like, yeah, Ginger was obviously killing the lip sync aspect of this, but I just wasn't excited by what she was doing. And I've also got to call out, I think the edit of this lip sync was a little too focused on Ginger, because every time it looked like Denali's lip sync was about to get good and maybe make sense for what was going on in the track and how she combined the lyrics and her dance moves, it would cut back to Ginger, who was just, you know, standing there doing her lip sync. And then we'd see Denali start another trick and then back to Ginger. And it just kind of felt like they weren't really giving us a full view of what Denali was doing. But was that simply because Denali was doing way too much and it was hard to get like a fair shot of what she was doing? Or was it because the editors were trying to show off how much Ginger was winning the lip sync? I don't know. So I'll agree. From what we saw as viewers on the final edit of the lip sync, I do think Ginger won, but I do think Denali maybe had a winning lip sync edit that we just didn't see. And also with Ginger winning for the second week in a row, this whole episode really just felt like a big eye roll. Because I walked away from it with the feeling that the producers sat down early in the storyboarding of this season and just said like, how can we make sure Ginger Minj gets to the semifinals no matter what? Because like, yes, Ginger did great, but now with her having her 6 points so early in the middle of this bracket, she has a guaranteed spot in the semifinals. At least if the previous point distributions from the other two brackets are to be indicators of what will happen here. And I know the fans of the show are feeling this across the board. Like literally just go to any Twitter thread or Drag Race discussion subreddit and you'll see people being upset about the blatant favoritism that Ginger's receiving. But I will also just be totally fair and say this is RuPaul's Drag Race, and at the end of the day, Ginger Minj is a legacy franchise darling and she is beloved by the judges. And she's kind of at a place now, because this is her fourth time around and she's worked with Ru and Michelle and the team so much that no matter what she does, they're gonna love it. It's just kind of a weird space, I think, for the show and the fans to be at odds at, because Ginger is somebody who I think has failed to capture a newer set of fans as the show has gotten older. And so there's just like an asynchronous amount of attention and love given to her from the franchise versus the fans. But really, when you take a step back and look at All Stars 10 as a whole, you can see the favoritism for even newer queens like Jorgeous, Bosco, and Irene, who, yes, all did great in their brackets, but, you know, they too all won 2 challenges, and nobody was online complaining about that. They were just happy to see it. I think it's also just really unfortunate for Ginger, as talented as she is, that we are in the 3rd bracket now, and we have been primed to see exactly how things are going to go, and we can transparently see which queens the producers are pushing into the semifinals, and Ginger is obviously one of those. And yeah, I think this bracket is also a little bit of a booger boring bracket because none of these queens are going to be stirring the pot. Like, Acid was the only one to bring up alliances, and I didn't even fight her on the discussion of who is going to get what points in the next MVQ ceremony in the workroom. Interestingly though, the queens of this season have been pretty tight-lipped on the favoritism of this season, and at a recent Roscoe's viewing party, Acid and Daya were actually asked by Naysha if they thought any queen was favored in their bracket, and they very tactfully said that they were too busy being focused on their own drag to be worried about that.
You know, I don't really give a and pay attention to anyone but myself, if I'm being 100% honest.
Good answer, Daya.
Yeah, I really wasn't concerned with anyone else except for me.
But of course, I'd love to know what y'all are thinking about this season now that we are here in episode 8. We're going into the last episode of the 3rd bracket next week, and then I think everyone will be happy to see the semifinals. But of course, I would love to know what y'all thought about everything down in the comments below. Do you think there is too much favoritism? Do you think the producers are being too heavy-handed? Or do you think things are playing out fairly and as expected? Personally, I'm kind of ready to move on from these sets of brackets and into the semifinals, because I know those are going to be icy, spicy, and maybe a little even pricey. And finally, let's talk hottest hots. On the runway, I'm going to give it to Denali, and in the challenge, Denali. I also asked my patrons to vote on their hottest hots this week, and they've chosen Denali on the runway and Denali in the challenge. I also want to remind you to check out the sponsor of today's video, Saley, a hot new eSIM service now providing data plans in over 180 countries. Download Saley right now using my link or by scanning the QR code on screen, and make sure to enter code BussyQueen for 15% off your plan. And finally, I want to give an extra special shout out to Debs, who's just joined my Patreon at the hot tier, and Ashton, Felicia, JBR, Laura, Matthew Burns, Miko, Minst, and Will and Tanner, who are all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collector tier at patreon.com. See y'all later. Love ya. Bye.